call the West Covina City Council meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Community Development Commission, and we'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance, so please rise. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, roll call.
Mayor, Chairman Herford.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vice Chairman Toohey. Councilmember Commissioner Armbrust. Here. Councilmember Commissioner Lane.
Here.
Councilmember Commissioner Sanderson.
Here.
Thank you. This is the time for public comments. We have one speaker card. Lloyd Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My question I have tonight is that if we're going to end up paying the blackmail money to the state to keep the CDC, what I'd like to know is where's the money coming from? I mean, is it already there in the CDC, or is there something? How are we going to pay it without coming out of the general fund or a fund that we can't afford it? So that's the question I have.
Great question. Can we get an answer for that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The monies will be under AB 27. The CDC is enabled to allocate 1 year of the revenue that we would put into our low mod funds to pay for this ransom payment. We estimate that to be approximately $4 million, leaving a balance of approximately $1.8 to $1.9 million that we would be taking out of CDC revenue fund balance.
Okay, thank you. The way that the low, moderate income housing fund works is every year the redevelopment agency is required to put in, I believe it's 20%.
Correct.
20% of all the increment that comes into the redevelopment area must go to the low mod income housing fund. So this year, because of this bill, they've allowed the cities to use that money, actually the entire amount, to pay this ransom, so to speak. What did you say? We have $3 million.
Approximately $4 million.
$4 million. So we're going to pay the ransom with the $4 million plus another $2 million of the general fund money, or not general fund. Jesus, that's the one thing we're not doing. It's the CDC reserve, basically, some of the reserve there. So
correct.
It's all community development money. None of it is general fund money. So hopefully that answers it. Okay. City Manager, do you have any comments before we move forward with this?
Yes, I have the staff that's prepared to respond to the items if you wish, just to further explain this. But
let me close public comment first, and then we'll go on to the staff report. Public comments closed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
There are two basic reports that have to go hand in hand in order to preserve the agency's existence. As your comments were made are correct that the general fund is not involved in directly in any of the payments. However, the general fund is affected if we do not take an action to keep the redevelopment agency alive, because there is a lot of implications in that type of decision. So I would like staff to make a short report on and summarize what's in the two reports, with your permission.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Chairman, and members of the Commission. Before you is the continuing ordinances and necessary resolutions to continue the redevelopment agency, which we refer as the Community Development Commission in the City of West Covina. The resolutions are as follows: is first of all that you declare the intent to adopt an ordinance by October 1st, which allows the which actually allows us to November 1st to actually adopt the ordinance. And the reason why that resolution is being passed or is being recommended to be passed is that by doing so, it gives the time for the actual ordinance to be effective, which will be after October 1st. Your continuing ordinance is also essentially will be approving the continuing of the redevelopment agency. Your resolution is, the third resolution is making the necessary findings of borrowing the low mod, actually not borrowing, of taking the low mod monies that we do not have sufficient revenues within the CDC to pay for that. So you'll be making those necessary findings. And with that is that to appropriate the remaining balance from fund balance. AB 26, that was recently approved on June 29th, which essentially the redevelopment agencies cease to exist as of October 1st, 2011, and AB 27 is what you're considering here tonight, is continuing the redevelopment agency with the related ordinances and resolutions. As the city manager has indicated, there's many impacts to the city if this is not continued. First of all, we estimated approximately $5.5 million the CDC annually pays the city. Should the city council not approve the continuing of the redevelopment agency, those monies, approximately 5.5, and you can cut some of those programs out of there, which could, at the bare minimum, would be like $5.2 million, would have to come from fund balance of the general fund. That would effectively affect the ongoing city operations. One of the main components of AB 26 is essentially it does not identify nor does it acknowledge the existence of the city loans. And that's one of the reasons why it's necessary for us to continue the CDC in order for those payments for the city can recover the monies that the CDC has borrowed. The impacts of the CDC is that essentially you would lose the redevelopment agency, which is the economic engine of the city. Over the past 11 years, the CDC has generated approximately $12.8 million in annual revenue and has created over 5,000 construction jobs and approximately almost $7,000. I'm sorry, 6,000 to 7,000 in permanent jobs. So the impact of the CDC is that essentially we wouldn't exist, and you would not have those ancillary benefits of having the redevelopment agency. And although times have changed where we're not really doing a lot of projects where we're investing a lot of redevelopment funds, what the CDC is doing currently is that we are helping a lot of businesses in a business assistance program where we're the economic arm of the city where we help those businesses through the entitlement process. We also attract a lot of the businesses that you are seeing in the Westfield Mall and at other locations. We have also identified many other other tenants that are looking to come into our city, and we do also have a lot of potential land sale proceeds that are up in the air right now until the CDC has the ability to I guess complete those transactions, which we currently do not right now. That pretty much concludes my presentation, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, are there any questions?
Well, if that report pertains to item number 1 on the agenda, Mr. Bachman can address item 2 if you wish to do that now or have them broken out separately.
Yeah, let's take a vote on that. I want to make a couple comments on this item. Obviously, this is something that nobody up here, I think, is happy to have to adopt tonight. Unfortunately, the state, what we feel is an illegal move, and we are in court. The League of California Cities and Redevelopment Association have sued the state over this matter, and I feel strongly, and I think our attorney and other people feel strongly that we will win that suit. But nevertheless, the state has forced our hand here, and we have to adopt this, or else we run the risk of losing actually the $20 million that the redevelopment agency owes to the city, in addition to the $5.2 million that staff talked about that supplements our city budget. So there really isn't much choice for the city here but to pay the ransom, hope that we win the lawsuit, get this money back in the future. The sad part is, had the state come to us and said, we're willing to work with you, let's work hand in hand in this, I, for one, probably would have said, okay, I have no problem for a year or two giving you some of our low to moderate income housing money. We're one of the few cities in the state that has met our obligation on low to moderate income housing. And so that money, which we are going to pay through the ransom, could have been done mutually and friendly, but this hostile takeover basically forces our hand, creates a negative atmosphere. a lot of doubt in city government, and so tonight we'll take the action to move forward with the adoption, I believe, of resolution AB 27, or paying the ransom. So, any other comments? Okay, we have first one is a resolution. City Clerk, do we need to read these, or can we just act on all three?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that we, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that we read each one because of the nature of the
City Clerk, the first resolution.
The first resolution is Resolution 201149, a resolution of the City Council of the City of West Covina, California, declaring its intent to enact an ordinance whereby the city shall elect to comply with and participate in the alternative voluntary redevelopment program contained in Part 1.9 of Division 24 of the California Health and Safety Code, and approving an agreement with the Community Development Commission to transfer tax increment. The next item is the introduction of the Continuum Ordinance. It's an ordinance of the City Council of the City of West Covina, California, determining it will comply with the Voluntary Alternative Redevelopment Program pursuant to Part 1.9 of Division 24 of the California Health and Safety Code in order to permit the continued existence and operation of the Community Development Commission of the City of West Covina. The next resolution is a resolution of the Community Development Commission, Resolution Number 613, a resolution of the Community Development Commission of the City of West Covina, California, declaring its intention to exempt tax increment payments to the Low and Moderate Income Housing Fund for the fiscal year 2011-2012, and making supporting findings and approving an agreement with the City of West Covina for the transfer of tax increment funds.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Sanderson, second by Lane. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item 1 on the agenda, or I'm sorry, item 1 on the, no?
That was continuing item 1 on the second page.
I see,
It was the
okay.
fourth recommendation.
We got the resolution, okay. So we did that. Item 2, enforceable obligation schedule.
Just want to make sure.
Do we need to adopt the remaining of the funding portion of that? Is that what we need to do?
Well, the action on the two resolutions, which are items 1 and 3, take care of a portion of the action that you need for AB 26 and 27. The ordinance is the introduction this evening, which will come back to you at your next regular meeting for adoption. The next item on the agenda deals with the enforceable obligation schedule that's required by AB 26, and that action has to be taken by the council to identify and adopt a resolution identifying the enforceable obligations payment schedule. So,
Okay. Resolution, do we need any information on this? Why don't you give us a brief staff report? I think it's...
We're dealing with the enforceable obligations now? Yeah. All right. I'm going to refer this over to Mr. Bachman, but before I do, the document itself is as a result of legislation that requires that we outline not only current obligations, but we have to project into 30 years into the future what kind of monies we're going to need to pursue projects in the future. And so a lot of it is a lot of projections that make the number rather large, and we do want the number large because there may be restrictions in the future on how much increment the agency can receive. Much of the money is going for local projects in this community, and Mr. Bachman will have a breakdown of that. Mr. Bachman?
Yes, part of the legislation that dissolved the redevelopment agencies and then permitted them to voluntarily continue on, there was a requirement, as Mr. Pesman said, to approve a schedule of enforceable obligations, and the agency can only make payments for obligations that are listed on that schedule of enforceable obligations. Therefore, it's important that we make that schedule as comprehensive as possible. And although the schedule that you're going to see tonight and that's attached to the staff report for approval contains a total of $1.3 billion, and that seems like a really large number, most of the items on that schedule are not debt under what most of us would consider the traditional definition of debt. Many of the items listed here are not only appropriate uses of tax increment revenues, but they're mandated allocations of future tax increment revenues that meet the definition of enforceable obligations for the purpose of this schedule. And many of the amounts listed for these items are based on projections of what the future tax increments are going to be over, in some cases, up to 34 years, depending on which individual project area it applies to. If we don't receive the tax increment revenues in these future years, we'll not be obligated to make many of these payments that you'll see on the schedules, because it's strictly as an allocation. In the case of housing, for example, it's 20% of future tax increment revenues. If we can bring up the slide real quick, and we'll go through that. This is the schedule broken down into 6 major groups of the $1.3 billion. You can see the housing projection for the low and moderate housing fund is $131 million of that amount. Item number 2 is schools and other taxing agencies. We already do pass-throughs to schools and other taxing agencies, including the county. That makes up about almost $360 million of the $1.3 billion. And the state mandates, which is the CRAF payments, which we made over the last 2 years, the $6.5 million, and then the additional $1.3 million, and then what we're terming as the ransom payment to continue operation, $5.85 million this year, and another $1.4 million each year to move forward. So the total of these first 3 items, which are strictly based on percentage allocations of our tax increment revenue, makes up about $550 million of that $1.3 billion that's on there. Item number 4, as you'll recall, you passed some resolutions back in the spring this year, some agreements between the city and the redevelopment agency, in that the redevelopment agency would fund future projects for the community. These projects, while some have been defined, there's nothing guaranteed that says these go forward. It'll again depend on the availability of tax increment revenues as we move forward. And the same holds true for item number 5, which is both project and personnel expenditures to carry out a lot of the things that are contained in item number 4. The only real debt on this schedule that which would be your mortgage, which would be a credit card, which would be a personal loan, an auto loan, that type of actual debt where you've got a significant or a specified amount that you owe, and you've got a repayment schedule based on a set interest rate. The only amount that meets that criteria is the bottom line. That's $223 million. About $170 million of that is bonded indebtedness. Some of it is in the project areas. Some of it is housing loans, and roughly $50 million of that is loans to the city of West Covina. And this $223 million not only includes the outstanding principal amount, but it also includes the projected future interest costs on those repayment schedules. So that's kind of a general breakdown of that. And I know again, you look at $1.3 billion, and that seems like a really large amount for a city of this size. But again, a lot of it's based on what we project over the life of the redevelopment agencies, and in some of the project areas, we still have 34 years remaining on that. So there's still some significant revenues to come in over that time. That's my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Yeah, this is just kind of a placeholder for a lot of this money to kind of say that if we do this, this is our projection over 30 years, and then the rest of it, 1, 2, and 3, there are obligations that we have to make through the redevelopment agency. The $357,000 is something we pass through every year to our school districts, and that's the projection over 30 years. Same thing with low and moderate income housing. Like I said earlier, it's 20% of the set aside. So. Okay, with that, we have a resolution. City Clerk, would you like to read that?
That's resolution number 614, a resolution of the Community Development Commission of the City of West Covina, California, approving the enforceable obligation payment schedule.
So moved.
Moved by Sanderson, second by Armbrust. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Human Resources Department, the Safer Grant side letter.
Mr. Bachman, go ahead and do the report.
This item is to approve an agreement with the Firefighters Association for alternative operational model to implement the grant. The city received an award of a little over $3 million over a 2-year period to hire 12 additional firefighters within the city. Part of that, and we've been working with the Firefighters Association to come up with an alternative staffing model that not only addresses some of the city's financial needs, but also addresses the operational needs. One of the key things that this grant does is last year during the budget cycle, we removed one of the engine companies from one of our districts in the city. We now only have 4 water pumping engines in the city, in addition to the ladder truck, which does not have water pumping capabilities. This grant will allow us to bring back that 5th engine company with the water pumping capabilities, which will now be available in all 5 districts. What we're doing as part of this is we're going to a different, and the reason for this is it's a different staffing model where we're going to run an engine company with 2 people on that engine, along with a 3-person ladder truck. As part of the discussions with the association, we were able to achieve certain concessions as we move forward to address initially some of the long-term goals that we've identified in with some of our other bargaining units. And again, the agreement here is necessary to implement that staffing model that's different than what's currently contained in the MOU. The basic components of this side letter agreement call for the side letter will run concurrent with the grant period, which is a 2-year grant period. There is a requirement to maintain the staffing for a 3rd level. There is a provision in there that allows for financial hardship if that exists at the time after the 2-year period. The alternative staffing model will consist of what we call a light force combination that will operate together at all times. 2-person engine company will have an engineer and a firefighter on board, and a 4-person ladder truck, which will have a captain engineer and 2 firefighter paramedics. The 4th person on that ladder truck will also be available to fill temporary vacancies in the firefighter paramedic rank on a daily basis. As part of this model, too, we'll also be bringing back the rank of firefighter, which is a less expensive position, about 16% less than the paramedic position that it's replacing. One of the objectives of the council in the past has been to try to address the rising pension costs. This agreement also calls for a 2nd-tier pension program at the 3 at 55 formula for all new hires. New hires under this grant will also serve 1 year at step 1. Right now, they currently serve 6 months at step 1, so that'll result in additional savings to the city. And at the end of this grant period, if there is a reduction in service necessary, the employees hired in this are not considered regular employees, and they'll have no rights to any provisions of the city's layoff policy. I think this was a good working relationship between both the city and the Firefighters Association. We both had some goals that we wanted to achieve, and I think we were successful in doing that, and in turn bringing back some additional apparatus and service levels to the community.
I do want to add, just make sure it's very clear that the job announcements as they were flown for recruitment clearly states that they are grant-funded positions, and so they know that they're limited in terms of that source of funding.
And they're also at the lower PERS rate.
Correct.
Or the different PERS rate, 3% of 55. Okay, any other questions? Councilwoman Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask, have these 12 individuals already been hired?
No, and we're going to bring them on in different phases. We're going to hire the firefighter paramedics first, and there's going to be 4 of those positions. We're getting ready to hire those, and we've just, we've reached the agreement with the association. We're preparing the offer letters, and as Mr. Pasman indicated, which was included in the job flyer, it's also included in our hiring letters to the candidates that this is again, it's a grant-funded position with no guaranteed permanent employment. They are scheduled to be brought on September 6th. They'll go through a 2-week training period. They'll work 40-hour weeks for those first 2 periods. Then they'll be integrated into the shift works. A month later, we'll bring on the 8 firefighter positions that we're bringing on. And again, they'll go through a 2-week training period before they're integrated out into the shift work. In between those two, somewhere probably 2 weeks after we hire the paramedics, we will promote 2 engineers from our current firefighter paramedic rank. Because we're adding the additional piece of apparatus, we had to bring on 2 more engineers. We're currently overstaffed by 1 engineer. Right now, we're promoting 2 engineers, so we'll have a full complement of engineers to staff the new piece of apparatus.
And another question I have is in reference to the grants. Have we been looking at future grants anywhere else to see if we can kind of continue this program in any way?
We've looked, and FEMA's come out with another grant that's more geared towards equipment. And we're not sure how competitive we'll be, on that. This was actually a pretty significant accomplishment for the department to be able to achieve something like that. It's a very large grant, and you hadn't seen a lot of these in the past, cities being successful here, so.
Well, never hurts to ask, right?
Right, no, we continue to look, we continue to monitor that, and the chief's very good at keeping his finger on the pulse of what's being offered out there.
I think it's important to add that, the chief was able to put this as a very competitive grant because not every city received that, so he was able to put a very convincing argument to FEMA to get this money.
Councilwoman Lane?
Yeah, it says that the grant is for 2 years plus a third year. Now, in the third year, does that mean it says if there's financial hardship that they would pick up the tab again, or does that mean that we're supposed to pick up the tab?
The third year will be the city's obligation unless we have a financial hardship and we can demonstrate for budgetary reasons that we could not afford to sustain this model, then we can opt to submit this request to FEMA.
And that they might, if they agree to it, pick up the tab for the
No,
third year?
there'll just be 2 years of
Just for the
funding.
2 years.
Right.
Okay, so then after that, the third year, if
They
there was
would,
a
then
problem.
we would have to release the grant-funded positions and then go back to whatever we've negotiated by that point in time with the units.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilwoman Lane already answered the question.
Okay,
Or
thank you.
answered, thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the Safer Grant Side Letter Agreement?
I make a motion.
Moved by Armbrust, second by Lane. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And that concludes the agenda. Any comments?
I just want to say thank you very much to staff, and thank you very much to the chief. That was very aggressive, and I appreciate that on behalf of all the residents. Again, thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to the chief and fire department for being creative and working to accomplish something and bringing the fifth engine back for us. It's not something that was easy for all of us, but I think working together, and the mayor touched on something earlier in reference to the state. That is my issue as well. They weren't even willing to work with us. And I also want to thank our CDC staff. I know Chris already, looks like he's not here, but, they've been doing a great job. If anybody's been driving around West Covina and seeing all these new restaurants and these new stores, and without them, we wouldn't have this. And so this was a critical move for us tonight. So I'm thankful to the council for getting together on a special meeting, and I'm glad we did that. So thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, motion. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Okay.